Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Wareham Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, February the 2nd. It is 6:18 p.m. And I'll call the roll. Jody. Bernie's here. Jerry's here. Stuart is here. David's here. Dominic will join later. And Tom, and if his wife is here, he'll be here too, but I haven't heard from him yet. I have a quorum. We'll go forward with that. I have a few items we have to complete on the agenda. One is to accept the meeting minutes for September 29th, 2021, October 6th, 2021, and November 17th of 2021. May I have a motion to accept them, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions? Any changes? There being none. Because we have a Zoom, I'll ask for the for the members. Jody, yes or no?
Yes.
I'm yes. Jerry?
Yes. Yes.
Stuart
I wasn't there.
was absent. David?
Yes, for all the ones I attended.
Okay. Very good, thank you. So all the minutes are accepted. Second one is to authorize payment for typing the minutes to Kelly Barrasso in the amount of $168.75. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'm glad that Kelly's back.
And we are caught up if you approve by approving that. Yeah, I'll call the roll. Jody?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Stuart?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And myself? 5 approved. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the hearing of the articles appearing on the special town meeting warrant, February 28th, 2022. First article is the golf purchase. And now it's titled as the golf purchase for identity purposes. It is in effect only purchasing 54 acres of land. There is no mention of the golf course in the purchase and sale agreement that we're discussing. I'm not suggesting we avoid it. Obviously, we all know it's there. But I've made a lot allowances for us after the Article 1 and 2 that we would discuss the golf course in detail. And you may ask any questions you would wish. But initially, I'd like to focus on that. I'm not going to necessarily limit you, but I would appreciate if you would kind of focus on whether or not you feel or how you feel about purchasing it as presented in Article 1. First of all, I'll ask Judy as chairman of the board, if you have a presentation or have any comments you'd like to make on this article.
Well, I guess I would ask you, are you're planning to do a PowerPoint presentation, Mr. Pigeon?
That would be, talked to Richard about it, and that'll be in the third issue since it focuses primarily on the golf course. However, we can change. We aren't rigid in what we do. Would you think it appropriate to do that now?
I think it makes it easier. Yes, because the presentation explains a lot of what is being proposed, why it is being proposed, and how it is being proposed to finance it. So it puts all of that information together and sort of squashes it into one presentation, if you will.
Good. Richard, are you prepared to go forward now?
Sure.
Bob, Richards are going to pull up a PowerPoint.
Oh, boy. One second. Okay, can people see the title slide?
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
it's good.
Okay, been working with team of people here, Judy and Jim and Bernie, to try to answer a lot of the questions that have been bantered around town. Many of you, first of all, I need to be fully transparent. Many of you know I'm on the planning board, and I'm not here in that capacity in any manner, shape, or form. I'm here as a butter of Little Harbor, a member of Little Harbor, and a golfer of Little Harbor. So I'm going to try to be very factual and very unbiased, but I'll do my best. So the agenda that we wanted to go through, I just wanted to show a couple pictures and then go through some background of the club. I'm going to talk about how the financing is being proposed, going to talk about what a conservation restriction is and what it does for us and how we need to go about implementing it. Talk a little bit about Little Harbor Country Club and the golf business trends right now. The current environmental status of the property, and then what the thoughts are about managing the golf course. So first of all, I want everyone to understand this is a photograph taken from a drone that I had purchased from Tim Pickett. It's one of my favorite pictures of all time. Tim gave me permission to use this as part of this presentation, and I'm very appreciative of that. Everyone knows where this is. I assume the old sanctuary is down here. Little Harbor Beach is here. The spit goes out here. Pretty self-evident, but still a great picture. This is a picture that Elise put together, and the reason I wanted to share it is that it does show that there are 13 separate parcels totaling almost 54 acres. There's some infrastructure on the property in terms of a maintenance shed here, a pump house here, a pump house here, a well here, the clubhouse down here, and you can see all the different lots, but it comes up to, like I said, 53.45 acres. Any questions there? Everyone's familiar with the property?
I think you said 53, but it's 54.33.
I don't know how you connect the picture of you.
All right, I'm just reading off the slide.
Yeah, okay.
It says you're in the meeting here.
All right, the golf course was built in 1961 and the country club was founded in 64. It's always been a family owned and managed facility. Current ownership is ready to retire.
Can you see me? I don't know yet. Mute my audio, start video.
Hey, Dominic, we need to mute you if you don't mind.
Oh, all right, there you go.
And town goal here, and this is very important, is to protect the open space of this property in perpetuity. And a secondary goal is to maintain the recreation aspect of Little Harbor Country Club. So how would it be financed?
Richard, just wanted to interrupt to let the record show Dominic has joined.
Okay. Purchase price of Little Harbor Country Club is $2.3 million. And that's based on a land and buildings appraisal done by the Audubon Society back in 2020 when they were interested in purchasing the property. There's different types of appraisal values. The ultimate value was listed as $2.375 million. There's additional equipment, machinery, and golf carts, which was appraised separately at a total of $200,000. The purchase price of 2.3 is for all the above: land, buildings, machinery, and equipment. Now, how we pay for that is step one is thanks to the CPC. who voted unanimously last week to fund $1 million directly toward the purchase and do a bond for another $1 million over a 10-year period. So that provided $2 million. An additional $600,000 will be funded by free cash bond grant or some other way that the town administrator is actively working on as we speak. That'll cover the $300,000 balance of the purchase price and up to another $300,000 to cover the cost of a new septic system, the conservation restriction, and all fees and documentation required to execute a purchase and sale on the property. Any questions there?
Yes, I have a question, Rich. When the appraisal is that, are we talking the total appraisal would be 2,575,000?
Yes.
Is it 2,375 for the land and 200 for the machinery? Can you add those together to get 2,575?
You
Yes,
could.
Well, I want to
Yes,
know
to
that. If
answer-
I want to know the value of it, that would be 2,575.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, now, when it's appraised, is it appraised as a golf course? Is it appraised as a land for future development? How is it appraised? What's the basis of the appraisal?
I'll read you the contact. Hang on.
What, I read, is Judy going to answer that?
Not sure.
I don't know that much about appraisals, and so I want to be very careful here.
The purchase and sale, from my understanding, is only for the property. It makes no reference to the business itself or the product the business has, as maintenance equipment, et cetera. That's almost like a gift to us. But Judy,
I can answer his question a little more specifically if you'd like.
Sure, please.
Okay. The value was arrived at two different ways. The indicated value by the income approach to value, cost of development technique, is 2,360,000. The indicated value by the sales comparison approach to value is 2,930,000. And so when he put the two together, it came out to be 2,375,000. So he used two approaches, but he used the more conservative one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we clarify what Bernie just said? What are we purchasing?
You are purchasing the land, the buildings thereon, and the golf carts, machinery, and equipment.
okay,
So these are all going to be like an asset purchase. We're buying a piece of equipment, buying a piece of land, buying a building. There are no liabilities associated with this.
I know that some of the golf carts are on a either a lease purchase, so there's a small amount of money that would come out of their proceeds. But yes, it's all free and clear other than that.
Okay, moving on. I learned a lot about conservation restrictions this week, and maybe you all know it, but I'll go through it again anyway. First of all, a conservation restriction is a requirement by state law for any land that's purchased using community preservation funds. And what it is an legal agreement that will ensure permanent protection from development. And in order to execute this conservation restriction, the law again requires that it be held by a separate governmental organization or a qualified third party. And right now, discussions are actively underway with the Wareham Land Trust regarding them being the holder of the conservation restriction. The cost of executing a conservation restriction to the town would be $75,000 to the Wareham Land Trust, because they are absorbing, I don't want to speak for them, please feel free to jump in, but they are absorbing with the being the holder of the CR, responsibilities in perpetuity to make sure that the CR is being adhered to. And
Rise that as an endowment.
another key element of the CR that I thought was important is that golf is not mentioned in this CR. The CR is a way that Wareham citizens can protect the open land in perpetuity. We've had a lot of discussions about what happens if the golf course ultimately is non-operational. The CR is there. It will always be open land. The golf course may go away, but the open land never will, and it will never be developed. I think this is very, very important to understand. And I think the land trust folks are on the line and they can help answer any questions. Judy, Jim, or Bernie can help too. Anyone have any questions before we go on?
I have one. In the $300,000 over and above the purchase price, does that include lawyers' fees for the town?
Does it include what, sir?
Lawyers' fees.
It
We have a
includes,
lawyer representing us.
yes, we have an attorney representing us. It costs the 75 to the Wareham Land Trust, $50,000 for a new septic system, $15,000, we think, for the updated survey, $5,000 for the 21E Phase 1, and $500 for the appraiser to correctly, ethically be able to give us a copy of the appraisal. And then on top of that, we put more because who knows? We will be taking title insurance on the property, and of course, a title search prior to that.
So who is representing the town?
Mr. Bowen is at the moment. Town council.
Meaning that somebody else might?
I don't know whether he feels that he certainly has been able to do all of the work for us previously. I haven't asked if there's something that he feels he can't do. I believe he will be representing us entirely.
And his fees will come out of this $300,000?
He gets paid a monthly.
Your microphone, please.
I'm sorry?
We're having trouble hearing the questions a little bit.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to do about it.
He gets paid a monthly fee when there are over and above activities. He charges more than the regular monthly fee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bernie, I have a question through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Dominic.
This purchase, will we be purchasing the name in the business? Is that anything additional, or do we get that? Can we still use the name? Little Harbor Golf Course, and, are we getting the business also in this purchase? Not just the land and equipment, the actual business.
My understanding is, if I may, Mr. Chair.
By all means.
Okay. My understanding is that we are purchasing all of the assets of the company that holds all of the assets of what we know as Little Harbor Country Club. I am not an attorney, so I can't speak to how we would be taking those assets. We have an understanding that all of the prepaid membership fees, all of that kind of stuff will transfer to the town, or in fact, to the management company that would be running the place. But it is a purchase of the land, which happens to have a business on it, but the land happens to be owned by the business.
Dominic, that's a good question. I think we should poke at that and get back.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, because it sounds a little vague, but, obviously if we do, we do get the land and the equipment, we can open a golf course, but sometimes businesses will put non-competes, there's a, it's a
No.
tricky, I know, but it's a tricky situation. I think we should find out whether or not the business name comes with it. It's just a question I think you need to address. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
The name may be considered a legal entity.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I will ask that question, sir.
Thank you, Judy.
You're
All
welcome.
right. So Judy has been working days, nights, and weekends with the owners to try to understand the financial performance of the club. And yesterday, she was happily was able to report to us that they agreed to share with us the data that you see on the screen now. This is average revenues, expenses, and net income from 2005 to 2020. It shows the average gross revenues at $650 million, annual salaries at 278, annual expenses and cost of goods sold at 345, and a net an average annual net income of $32,394.
He said million, but he meant thousands.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're okay.
And it's also important to note that the owners were very forthright in sharing that over the last several years, there has been very limited promotion and marketing of the course going on as they have started to plan their transition out of the country club. So this is the data that we have right now. I know that your committee, Bernie, has been asking a lot of questions about it. It's not as detailed as I'm sure some people would like, but it's a lot more than we had 2 days ago.
Could I make a comment on it, Mr. Pigeon?
Yes, well,
Thank you. The historical figures on the operation of the business show that it can in fact be profitable on an average over a 16-year period. What the town plans to do, and that will come up later on in this presentation, is hire a professional golf management company. Everything and everything that is done and every person who works for that company is not an employee of the town. It's a contract with a company, and it is to their benefit to ramp up the business, to do a whole lot of promotion, do a whole lot more of the things that the course used to do and was not able to do so much through COVID. They have historically been very generous with having their course host charitable events for almost anything in town. And they are well known for that. COVID obviously put a dent in it, although the rounds played went up substantially. So the professional management company, while these figures show that it can and has been profitable on average over a period of time, what we really are looking at is an opportunity to spend some money and then not spend any more money except for capital expenses.
I have two
I
questions.
add, if the management contracts that I've seen thus far have clauses in them in which the town is protected from losing or having to contribute tax dollars to sustain the business, in that in one in particular, they are provided with they must provide an estimate of expenses for the future year, very much the way we project our fiscal year expenses. And they provide a bond. If they fail to provide the expenses, that bond makes up the difference. So the town does not have to supply any tax dollars. Now, that's just one contract. There's other methods in other contracts that do. But I just want to assure you that the objective is be sure that no tax dollars have to be spent to sustain the course.
The only exception to that would be capital expenses like a new, lawnmower, big lawn.
Yes. And that the
Gang mower
intent
or
is.
something like that. But
and
that
the
would
intent
be,
is-
that would be a capital expense, and that's the only thing that the town would be responsible for under any model of the management contracts.
And the provision that I've read thus far is that any profits, if I'll call them that is turned back to the town, that is placed in a revolving fund for the purposes of financing those capital outlays.
Correct.
I have two questions. These numbers that we're looking at, they're not audited, are they?
They are not audited. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
They are not audited. They are on a letterhead from their
Accounting office.
accounting office. Would you like me to read the transmittal?
No. but
yes,
they're
read the
not-
paragraph, please.
Okay. You have requested that we provide you with financial information for Little Harbor Country Club, Inc., a client of this firm. In response to your request, we provide to you the following information reflected in the financial statements compiled by our firm for fiscal years ended December 31st, 2005 through December 31st, 2020. Our firm issued compiled financial reports to Little Harbor Country Club, Inc. during the years for which information is being provided. A compilation is limited to presenting in the form of financial statements information that is a representation of management, and accordingly, we did not express an opinion or any other form of assurance on them. We further only provided this information for the reports issued through fiscal year end 12/31/20, and we make no attestation as to any subsequent events unknown to us which might have a bearing on the information supplied to you. Any use by you of this letter or information presented is solely a matter of your responsibility and judgment. I do know that they made more money in 2021, but they use QuickBooks and that's not yet available and not therefore in that figure.
So
I
my,
might point out to everyone, we're dealing with a private party here, not another government entity. And if they refuse to release any detailed data, that's within their right to do so as a private party. So this is a compromise that they've been agreed to, and they go back some 15 years to establish these average and gross revenues, salaries, et cetera. And I can assure you that the chairman of the select board spent many hours talking with them to convince them to at least to release something to us, and this is the most they would give us.
that sounds great. The fact of the matter is, when you sell a business and you sell a piece of land, you provide financials. Sure, it's within their right not to provide them, but so what?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, by all means, Madam Chairman.
we are buying 54 acres of land that happens to have a golf course on it. We will not be running it the same way that it has been run for the past several years. We intend to have it run professionally by a professional management company.
I understand. My second question is, an average annual net income of $30,000 is not very much money. In the event that we can't find a management company of quality to run this for us, is the town prepared to deal with the political fallout of closing the club?
I don't,
May I ask a clarifying question? I'm not
Roger.
sure, I'm not sure what you mean by the political fallout.
Well, when this issue arose, I was sent a bunch of emails by people saying, please don't close this, please buy this. I suspect there are a lot of members that will be upset if this club were to close. I don't have any idea about the golf course management business, but it's hard for me to believe that some management company wants to take on any kind of risk for a potential return of less than $100,000.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, by all means.
We actually have had 3 management companies basically say that they are very interested in looking at the RFP. We haven't issued the RFP because obviously we don't own the course. But there are at least 3 well-known companies that have expressed interest and see a future.
So the other question I have, and that may well be, but are we willing to raise the fees to play golf there? The fee, the cost of the food there that we sell to the public? I mean, I'm just saying $32,000. Why put in the effort? So something has to change.
That is correct. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
That is correct. I believe that that statement is accurate. For the first year, certainly we would honor the information that was sent out by management about the membership fees, et cetera. After that first year, then because we would be, the season starts April 1st. So the company's already sent out information. They started sending it out in December, hoping that the course would be sold to somebody who would operate it as a club, as a golf course, and saying that they hoped that whoever bought it would honor those membership fees for that period of time. That, to me, is a moral obligation for the 1 year.
Okay,
and if you go further than the 1 year, the management company comes back with the information that projects what their expenses are, and they will determine what the rates are for club rental, excuse me, or any other charges that may change from what they experience currently. We're not going to be in control of any of that. It's up to the management company to determine how they're going to operate it to make their fee plus expenses.
Okay, any others? Moving on,
Why don't you continue then?
please. Little background, rounds played over the last 4 years. This is some data that's been shared with us. And you can see the totals, the daily fee rounds, daily fee meaning someone paying the advertised green fee for that time of day and that day of the week, the member rounds, and then the other rounds. The other rounds we're pretty sure are tournament rounds. Little Harbor on the weekends sponsors an awful lot of fundraising tournaments where the organization or whoever's doing it rents basically the entire course. And you can see what the interesting thing here is. You can see what COVID has done. It boosted the daily fee and member rounds significantly. It being an outdoor activity that you could easily social distance. And it knocked down the charity fundraising tournaments. And that, I mean, I live down here, and it was very evident to me the tournaments were nowhere near as popular as they were previous to the COVID hit.
I might interject. Go back to that slide, please, Richard.
Yeah.
I did the calculation based on the 2021 total rounds of 22,921, using the least expensive rounds of $18 for 9 rounds at Twilight, and multiply that out, it comes to like around 420,000. And that's just for those rounds. It doesn't include cart rental, pro shop costs, or restaurant snack bar revenue. So it can be viable based on that rudimentary calculation.
I've been looking all over the internet the last week or so, trying to get some data to help understand the state of the game. Specifically, I'm looking for rounds played data, and it's very, very hard to interpolate. Because right right now the data is segmented in many, many different ways, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But the one data that I did find, that what I thought was very telling, was from the Federal Reserve Economic Database, where they track total revenue for tax exempt golf courses and country clubs. And you can see the growth curve that golf is experiencing, except for the dip of 2008 and 9, that recession that we went through. But the curve is a very positive one.
Richard,
Yes,
I went on the same database and added another line called expenses
yes.
and found that the average profit margin is 11.3%.
I'm sorry, 11?
11.3% profit. So if you go back to this golf club, which is showing 5%, I guess that it would be room for improvement in this current operations of Little Harbor.
I think that everyone that's been working on Judy's team is in 1,000% agreement with you about the room for, or the opportunity, if you will.
Yeah, well, you could double. You should be able to double the profit of Little Harbor if it's anything like what is happening in the rest of the United States.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yes,
Mr.
Madam
Stefanski, I believe that's absolutely 100% accurate. And again, according to the owners themselves, they have been looking to retire. And so they haven't been marketing it as much as they could have over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and the last thing is, this is the St. Louis Fed, and if you can't trust the Fed, who can you trust?
I'm not touching that one.
I'm not touching that one.
Where the federal government.
I can
we're
give
here
you
to help.
$30 trillion to trust it.
No, because that we got there about several years prior to what we thought we would get.
Okay, now.
So I tried to highlight here the revenue streams, daily greens fees, membership dues, private tournament, golf cart rental. Golf cart rental is significant. Food and beverage, that's much more beverage than food there. The Little Harbor isn't known for its gourmet menu right now.
They got hot dogs.
Yeah. Pro shop sales and push cart and club rental. One of them is probably the second most asked question that I see is all around the environmental impact of a golf course. So this is the data that we've collected to try to answer people's when they want to know what's going on there. Little Harbor has always done semi-annual soil testing reviewed by the University of Rhode Island certified labs and has never found abnormal or hazardous conditions there. We do have a list of all the chemicals they used, and it was reviewed by a soil scientist who deemed them normal and appropriate. And we have submitted that same list to Green Seal to start the process of a step 121E review. And we're expecting to have those initial results by the 14th of this month. Gary reported that on behalf of the Department of Natural Resources here in Wareham, that the water testing that they do at Little Harbor Beach has never shown any trace of chemicals from Little Harbor Country Club. We are poking at that a little more as well. We should have some more data. But the key thing is that the town is committed to best practices in doing this maintenance. There's no question that the chemicals, the fertilizers, and the pesticides that are available to maintain a golf course can be safe if the right ones are used. They cost more than the ones that aren't safe to use, and golf courses have been known to use the wrong kind, but that is not the situation here, nor would it be in the future.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, by all means.
Thank you. In the draft RFP, I can read you what, for instance, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides what has been written into the RFP in terms of application. So this would be for the roughs, okay? Applications of appropriate pesticide materials shall be made on maintained roughs to control target pests and weeds. Pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, and insecticides are to be applied on a curative basis. Chemicals must be chosen that are approved. No pesticide can be applied, which we don't have the diagram. Any preventative measures must be discussed and approved by the golf director, and that's going to be the town administrator at the moment. These pesticide materials shall be applied in accordance with the manufacturer's standard recommendations and in accordance with local, state, and national regulations. The town shall review, approve, and if necessary, direct such applications. And all of the chemicals that are applied by licensed applicators, guys who have licenses.
Applicators, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
And that's typical for the language in every segment of the course.
Could I ask a question about the environmental?
Yes, Stuart.
Okay. I have no doubt that going forward, if the town were to purchase this, we would act responsibly with regard to all this.
That's correct.
My biggest concern about buying 54 acres of land is there some environmental disaster we don't know about? Because they get very expensive, as this town has experienced. So I don't know what a step 1 21E review is. I don't know what comes after that, but it would make me feel better to know that some fairly thorough environmental investigation of this land has taken place, so that we don't inherit some unknown financial exposure.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Step 1 environmental review, they take the list of chemicals that has been supplied by the company and they look at those. Then they also go through all of the public records for the property to see what if any accidents had happened, and we don't believe there are any. And our director of municipal maintenance walked through what I'll call maintenance garages, barns, okay? All but one have cement floors. There was no indication of oil spills, gas spills, leaks, stuff like that. And in the one shed that has a dirt floor, an earthen floor, there is no machinery kept at all. It's things like the ball washers and the seats. So the step 1 review is actually a very thorough review.
Okay, like I say, I'm not an environmental expert. Are there any underground oil tanks?
No.
Gas tanks? Is there any, do they fill up gas into their carts there? All I'm saying is, I like this idea. I just don't want the town to get stuck with a liability because we didn't do sufficient due diligence. That's all.
Thank you. And I think that's a very good point. And that is exactly why that was one of the requirements that the Community Preservation Committee put on to giving the funds to the town and, to the purchase was a step 1 review. And so we have engaged Green Seal to do that.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Stuart. JD.
I was going to bring up chemicals. That's on my list of things to talk about. I can tell you, I was glad to hear that you used public records. I was a licensed applicator up until 2 years ago. I gave up my license, but the state is very thorough about, they do audits at the golf course.
Yes.
You have to show how it was applied and all those things. So I'm very comfortable now that they use the state records to see what was applied, how it was applied and all that. I'm sure the applicator there, whoever may have been, was probably did his due diligence. You have to. There's no doubt. I'm not really that concerned about, now I'm not that concerned about any environmental issues. There are, and you're right, to use the safe chemicals is extremely expensive.
Mhm.
I ran a municipal golf course. I did use a lot of the safe ones, but there are things, different diseases that come up that you just need to use some serious chemicals, and it's very well audited by the state, extremely well audited. But
I'll just, if I may, Mr. Chair, I just want to throw an interesting story out. I just want you to know how diligent the owners are. I don't remember, it was either 2 or 3 years ago that they had a turnover in their maintenance staff, and they didn't have a licensed applicator. They had all the equipment, they had all the chemicals, and everybody, they knew how to do it, but they didn't have a licensed applicator. So they actually went and hired someone from another golf course to come in and do it. They could have tried to shortcut the system, but they didn't. And they use all the right precautions. They wear the right type of suits when they're spraying down the chemicals. So I'm very comfortable myself. I mean, like I said before, I'm in a butter. I'm very comfortable with the practices they have used here, and I'm very comfortable that we'll continue that. I have one more slide, and that's managing the golf course. We've talked a little bit about some of these bullets already, but they're worth repeating. The town wants to outsource the day-to-day management to professional golf course managers. And that's because the town has no desire to manage a golf course. I think there's been some experience here in Wareham with that in the past, and we know that didn't work as well as it could have. There will likely be a golf course committee of some kind to work with that professional golf management, but ultimately, from a business relationship point of view or an escalation point, it would be the town administrator who's ultimately responsible for the relationship. RFPs will be issued by the town administrator's office, and it's my understanding right now that the Board of Selectmen will have final approval authority. And as was mentioned before, and this is important, the contract will be structured to eliminate any possible operational costs to the town. Typical contracts put that responsibility of profitability upon the management company, incentivizing them and guaranteeing that the town is not exposed. Oop, I have a typo there. I'm sorry about that.
We missed one.
So I'll fix that.
I'll add on to what Richard had said. I thus far have reviewed some 3 different contracts of management, and all of them have very strong issues with who is going to be responsible for what. And they've mentioned the capital outlay.
That's right.
The outside group, let's say an advisory committee, is responsible for managing capital outlay purchases. And let's say a capital outlay may be replacing a lawnmower, which must be evaluated by the management company, providing maintenance records. And if they require or are approved to purchase a new lawnmower, because the management company has other interest in other courses, they are able to purchase one without having to go through, I think, an RFP and all, to purchase one at less money because of their volume purchasing. And that is to the benefit of the town. But the town would not have to go out and do that process. All of these management contracts give management total control over the golf course. Total. And they have clauses within them that provide bonds that protect the town from having to bear any cost. Now, one of the issues that came up when we were discussing with CPC was, let's say, the irrigation system, going to have to replace it. Well, no, you don't have to replace it. It's like the plumbing in your home. You have a leak, you fix the leak. That's called maintenance. You don't replace the whole system. We have to replace the Title V, which is in the agreement within the purchase contract, and we're going to purchase it or replace it using town funds. That's one of the agreements that are typically in the process of purchasing something as to who is responsible for what. And we're discussing doing a larger one because it's potential, if successful, that the clubhouse could have a second floor because they have an absolutely beautiful view of Little Harbor. And we would want to go forward to make sure we're prepared to do that. Excuse me. But that's what something that the town must decide to do, not the management company. But once it's constructed, i.e. the, let's say, expansion of the clubhouse, that becomes their responsibility to make it profitable, not the town. I cannot emphasize enough that all the contracts I've reviewed thus far, the town is protected in many ways, having to invest anything to maintain it. It's all the responsibility of the management company. If they want to make a profit, they have to produce a quality product.
In all of them, again, to answer some of the, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, Charlie.
in each of the RFPs that I've reviewed, there are bond requirements, there are insurance certificate requirements, and there are minimum criteria. And in all of these RFPs, again, that I've reviewed, the contract will not necessarily go to the lowest bidder or what looks like the lowest bidder. We will choose the one that is most qualified, responsible, and taking into consideration the price, but also it, the record of other courses that it may manage locally, whether it's in Massachusetts or in New England.
But any more questions regarding that issue?
I'd like to make one more comment as we close up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Richard. Yes, Richard.
I think it's very, very important to look at this proposal. It's not we're not trying to buy a golf course. What we're trying to do here is buy 54 acres of open space and recreational land. It so happens that there is a golf course on it today. If that golf course isn't there 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, the open space and the recreational aspects of that open space will always be there. You saw us use the word perpetuity a couple times, I believe, in this presentation. This is why that conservation restriction is so important to understand. That's what we're doing here. We are guaranteeing open space for the citizens of Wareham down at Little Harbor in perpetuity. And in the meantime, we're going to see if we can continue to run the golf course. Hopefully we can, but if we can't, we still have what the primary intent was, and we always will. I looked at that through some, the Wareham Land Trust people were very, very helpful to us, and the messaging that they used with me rang very true along that line. So I think it's important that everybody on this call understand that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I add something?
Yes.
All of this property happens to lie in something called the Opportunity Zone. For those of you who are more familiar with the term, I don't need to explain it, but I will explain it. The Opportunity Zone, there's a very large chunk of land at this end of town in the Opportunity Zone. A company that chooses to invest in a piece of land and spends at least what it has spent to acquire the property will get a 20% tax break for the next 10 years. So let me do the math. If somebody were to buy this property and they could get 35 single-family homes on this property, according to the appraisal, we're not going to talk about condominiums because you could probably get 44 if you did a cluster. You could do a whole lot more. But if you did 35 and the average price might be something like 450,000, whatever it is that the person would buy the property for 2.3. The minute he spends 2.3 on the development of the property, he gets a 20% tax break. So it's a perfect location for, I don't want to use the word, but I will, a solar panel installation. It's perfect. And somebody would get a lot of tax benefit because of that. So would somebody who put the 35 houses on it.
And what Judy is alluding to is that it's an attractive piece of property for other buyers. And there are others waiting in the wings for various reasons. Now, before we go further on,
I have a question, Bernie.
Elise from the Wareham Land Trust. Elise, would you like to say anything regarding this?
I mean, I'm here to answer any questions. I really can't speak to the financing behind this or what your committee is expected to vote on tonight.
No, but you're for your interest, for Wareham Land Trust interests, I think it's our awareness of what your interests are would be appreciated if you want to say something.
Sure. So with respect to Wareham Land Trust interest in this, we are still working on finalizing some agreements with the town. One of the requirements from the Community Preservation Committee to the town in order to approve that $2 million of CPA funding was that they get a memorandum of understanding with a CR holder. The Wareham Land Trust is capable and able to hold a CR on a property such as this. Putting a CR on a golf course is not typical, but there is precedent in other parts of the state where there are golf courses that do have CRs on them. And I spoke to one of the executive directors of a land trust that manages one of those CRs, and she's had a great relationship with the golf course management there, and it can be a very successful relationship, and we hope that that's what we see here. We are in the final stages of finalizing that memorandum of understanding between the land trust and the town. We had a lot of details that we had to figure out, but I think we're mostly all on the same page. But especially as Richard mentioned, I mean, our intent here is to keep this as open space however possible. If there were no golf course, we would obviously be happy with this as more of a natural native environment. But even as a golf course, there's immense value to nature and to the community to have this as open space. There are wetlands and streams and wildlife habitat, even as it is today. And somewhere down the road, whether that's 5 years, 50 years, or 100 years, if and when golf is no longer feasible, this has potential to be other things. It can be restored to other native habitats. It can have walking trails that could easily be created from the cart paths that are already there. So this is a long-term investment for the town, both for open space as well as recreation, and that recreation can evolve over time. I would also say looking at this picture also puts climate change and sea level rise into perspective here. The parking lot, clubhouse, and the 18th hole are all abutting the salt marsh. There are some really low elevation places here, and keeping this as potential flood storage and wave attenuation space in a way that isn't going to put 35 new homes in flood's way is also just a smart long-term planning move. And it also is one of the few places in town where salt marsh will have an opportunity to migrate in the future, where there isn't some barrier like a road or some other hard infrastructure to stop that. So in the long term, there's a lot of interesting potential for this property, and the land trust is certainly interested in being involved and helping however we can get it to that point.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Elise?
May I just add, Mr. Pigeon, one comment?
Yes.
The land trust was proactive and reached out in October when they saw that the selectmen were having executive sessions under reason number 6 for the proposed purchase of Little Harbor. They reached out in October offering help, guidance, and they really have been very helpful all along, guiding us through the steps of what it is, what it means, and what we have to do to make it a reality, to match the funding from the generous funding, I would add, from the Community Preservation Committee here in Wareham.
Thank you.
Bernie, I have a question.
Yes, Dominic.
Through you, the chair. This goes back to my original question for Richard and Judy. So basically then, when I mentioned, were we buying the business? So in reality, we're not, because we're actually, anyone else would just buy the land for 2.3. So then basically it's a no-brainer. I mean, if the golf course fails, we purchased the land. That was the reason why I asked that original question, were we buying the business? So we're really not paying a premium for the business. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
The agreed upon price that the owners had agreed with Massachusetts Audubon was $2,300,000. I don't know what they were going to do with the machinery and equipment. These owners have agreed to sell it to the town for $2,300,000, but they're also
throw it
putting in,
business,
I don't want to word throwing in
Whatever, you know what I meant,
$200,000
yes.
worth of stuff that happens to enable us to run a golf course.
And you believe that there are people in the wings that would pay 2.3 just for this land? If
Yes,
that's
sir.
what it's valued at, you are?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, Then,
I'm aware of at least one individual who lives in town who has cash in his pocket.
then I believe it's a no-brainer. I believe it's a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
No other questions of Elise? Thank you, Elise. The Article 2 is primarily, again, purchase course, but with CPC funding. With Joan from CPC, care to make a comment or may address the issue with respect to the limitations or the requirements to fund this through CPC funds? Joan? Unmute yourself. You're muted, Joan.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, CPC has committed to $2 million, so that is $1 million from our reserve funds, and then $1 million will be bonded. With that comes 4 contingencies, because we are paying for the land. So CPC can only pay for land, it can't pay for anything else, no buildings, no equipment. And I think the 4 contingencies were alluded to already. One is a boundary survey completed by a licensed surveyor to make sure that there are no encroachment issues that would cause further legal problems down the road with the land. A written release from the appraiser, and I think Ms. Whiteside talked about that already, that is underway, because the appraisal only lists Mass Audubon and the state as the users. So as long as we're listed as an authorized user and that we can rely on the findings, the appraisal contingency will be met. The 21E site assessment was requested because of past issues and also because of the fact that it has been an operating golf course for 60 years. And we don't know that the chemicals that are used today are the same chemicals that were used 60 years ago. So at least a phase 1 study. If the phase 1 passes, the town can decide they don't want to go on to a phase 2, which is more investigative into the actual land itself. If the phase 1 is not positive, then you would definitely want to go on to a phase 2 before you purchased. And then finally, the memorandum of understanding with the qualified organization that's going to hold the CR. So I think all of those things are in the works, and from CPC's standpoint are what we would ask for any land purchase with CPA funds.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
The only thing that probably won't be done is the perimeter survey. They just lost a week to the storm. They have been engaged, the company has been engaged, and they promised me the survey before the 18th. I quite honestly don't think they can still do that, but it is in the works as soon as they can see the ground.
In progress.
And may I, Chairman?
Yes,
and that's important because historically with golf courses, encroachment is an issue. So the older the golf course, the more land encroachment you'll find. And so it is important to have a survey done with boundary markers so that down the road, the town is not then charged with legal issues for encroachment.
Yes, the land trust and several members of the group of people here actually did a walk on a very cold Saturday morning.
On a very cold Saturday, yes.
Very cold Saturday morning, and they were able to find all but two bound marks, I believe. Is that correct, Elise?
We found some of them.
Oh,
We didn't go to all of the perimeter pieces because some of it was in the forest. So there are,
okay.
a survey is a good idea, and it's something
yeah.
that the land trust has been saying the same thing that CPC was saying. Joan, if Mr. Chair, if I could ask Joan one more
Yes, by all
question,
means.
just to make sure that everybody's clear on what would actually qualify for the CPA funding at this point. If the Board of Selectmen can provide you with, say, the assurance that a survey will be done, if it isn't completed by the 18th or by the 22nd, is the funding still available if it's in the works, or do you actually need to see the final survey? Because we may be at a sticking point otherwise.
Well, I can tell you that the vote that was taken at the CPC meeting actually stated a boundary survey completed by a licensed surveyor. So that was one of the stipulations.
So that would be a requirement before any money came from CPC.
Yes, there were 4 contingencies to protect the land, and that was one of them.
And my
So
understanding
it's
is
a
that all of
contingent.
those things had to happen before a town meeting, or do all of those things have to happen before you would actually release the funds?
At the CPC meeting, I believe that Sandy Slavin stated before town meeting, so before February 22nd, before the town voted on the funding.
I
That
think it was that the funds would not be released until those things had been
I think that was
done.
the understanding.
That is my understanding of what that vote was.
The vote was that the following contingencies were to be completed before the town meeting on February 22nd.
That was the wording you have in your minutes?
Correct.
And, well, let's say, I would think there's enough wiggle room, since we're all volunteers here, that should storms or whatever complicate the ability of the company to complete its responsibility or its tasks, that would be allowable. I mean, it's not that they aren't going to do it, it's they're going to do it by a time certain. However, certain events may complicate that and make them unable to do so. And I think those events would be acceptable to the CPC. Would you not, Joan, agree to that?
We'll take it back. We have a meeting next week and we'll take it back and talk about it. But it was approved at that meeting, and Derek was there, you were there, Judith was on the line. So we did go over that, and that was what the CPC voted on. So I can't say that I can change that.
No,
without.
but I think in presentation, then they're not an unreasonable group. And so I think under the circumstances, they'd be more than willing, considering they're all town residents, to say, okay, there's some things or sometimes you can't accomplish what you committed to do, but the circumstances are such that it's allowed, the extra time is allowed.
And I'll bring it to them on the 9th.
Indeed,
you,
please
Joan.
do.
Very good. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, Madam Chair.
I will actually send you a request, Madam Chair, or I'll have Mr. Sullivan send a request for a clarification on that one. All of the other things will have been, I'm pretty sure the MOU will be completed. Everything else will be in hand. And I don't see how, and even with the 3-week, the engineer told me the 18th was, I was going to owe him coffee and donuts for the rest of my life. So I I will double check with him, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be a tooth skinner. And my suggestion would be to have your committee reconsider and hold the funds until that, in fact, in other words, approve the funding, but hold the funding until all of the agreed upon items have been complied with. And certainly we are in the process of complying with all of them.
And I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Well, I'll definitely take it back to them and we'll have an answer on the 9th.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you. Excuse me, one more thing, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Do you want Mr. Sullivan present to present that request, or do you just want it in writing?
If we could just get the documents in writing, so if we could get whatever you have finalized, the other 3, and then we'll.
When are you meeting?
On the 9th.
We won't have them complete. We have the 14th as where most of them are coming.
Okay, when you have them, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'll just put them in the file.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Excellent. Are there any other questions or concerns from anyone in the audience?
I have one question, Bernie,
Yes, Jerry.
for Joan. You're going to take a $1 million general obligation golf course bond. Is the CPC going to be paying the interest and principal every year for the 10 years?
We will. So at the meeting, Mr. Sullivan laid out what the payment would look like to CPC. And it would be about $170,000 annually for the.
No.
Is that-
113.
Yeah.
113.
113.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it depends
So-
on the type, it depends on the type of bond, whether it's taxable or non-taxable.
These
Right.
are a tax exempt bond, Jerry.
Tax exempt, okay. So tax
So it's
exempt,
the 113 and
113.
yeah.
okay. Answers the question. Thanks, Joan.
Now, I might add that their concern was that if they were to give us or give the purchase of the course the entire 2 million, that would impact their overall reserves and may hinder them from granting some other project. And this was a way of not or minimally impacting what they had for monies on a year-to-year basis. So they allow them flexibility in concerning projects.
The other thing I think that was, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Really sorry. The other thing
By
I
all
think.
means, but just jump in, Joe.
Yeah, the other thing that was, I think, a legitimate concern is that, yes, the sellers are throwing in the $200,000, but the CPC cannot purchase anything except for the land and the buildings that are on it, the stuff that's there and attached to it. So
Not
I think,
not the buildings, just the land.
right, exactly. So
Yeah.
it happens to be coming along with it, but in order for the CPC really to feel comfortable with what it was that their funds are purchasing, the $2 million was a more reasonable figure, I think, for the ask, if you will.
Yes, that gave us everybody a little wiggle room there to be cooperative and understanding.
I have a question about the financing. So when this is presented to town meeting, it's not a 2.3 million purchase. If there's $113,000 worth of interest for 10 years, it's a 3.6
When I
million.
hit this
something like that.
mute, it shuts me off, right?
Right. Is that correct?
Over the life of the borrowing, yes.
Right. So
If I may, I think it doesn't come out to be quite that much. So it's the 1 million, you get 13 to 20,000 a year for 10 years. So even if it's 20,000 a year for 10 years, that's 200,000. So it's the 1 million,
I thought
the
you
1
was-
million, and then 200,000 in interest is
Right.
the total that you're paying over the course of 10 years.
Correct.
I misunderstood what you were saying about the interest payment. That's all.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
I've got one for you.
Yes.
So we're talking about the perimeter being completed by town meeting as one of the contingencies, but so is the environmental survey. So what happens if the phase 1 comes back that a phase 2 is needed on the 21E? Will that stop the funding as well? Or will there be an allowance to not release the funds until that's completed?
I think that if a phase 1 came back and if it was not positive, the town would definitely want to hold off purchase at that point to then go to a phase 2 to determine what the environmental impact was.
Yeah, because Stuart's earlier question was concerning any liabilities,
Mhm.
maybe latent at currently, but may pop up later. So this would necessarily protect the town going forward into a next level of examination.
Well, my concern is whether or not if they have to do a phase 2 study, right now as it's written, if it's not completed by the 22nd date, then they're not going to release the funds. So this would all be moot at that point. Would they be willing to bring that back up at the February 9th meeting as well as the perimeter survey? Just in case?
That would be between your other members of the CPC as to the stipulations they may put on it.
But that's all I have.
John, you want to address that?
I would think that if the phase 1 came back and it was not positive, that with prior history, the town would want to do a more in-depth examination, as Stuart mentioned, to make sure there were no hidden environmental issues on the site. So I think that if the phase 1 comes back, it may change the entire picture. It may change what people want to do with the golf course.
Indeed. Well, indeed it's so, because those are serious complications that we may be encountering.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I speak, please, through you? I think the question that Matthew's asking is, of the 4 right now, you're going to go back, Joan, to your committee and say, for the perimeter survey, we're going to change the terms of to say that we're not releasing the funds until we get that because it may be late. And I think what I heard Matthew say is you should probably consider using that same language on all 4 of your conditions, to say, these are the conditions and no funds will be released until they are all met, whether it be before or after the town meeting. I think having the condition to have them done by the 22nd may be putting too much pressure on the whole system. And you can accomplish the same goal just by saying, we're not releasing the money till it happens anyway. Did I misspeak there, Matthew?
No, that's exactly it. That's where my head is. We want the survey done. We want it done correctly and completely.
That's right.
Anything?
Mr.
Any
Chairman, if I
comments?
may,
Yes, Madam Chair.
I believe that everything, the other 3 will be in hand by the 14th. I cannot, the survey is what is now keeping me awake at night.
Judy, I think all Matthew and I are suggesting is you don't know what's going to happen between now and the 14th. And if Joan has the opportunity to protect the project while at the same time protecting the CPC money, there's an easy way to do it, and it should probably be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I hear you.
Elise, did you have a comment?
I did, and I think this might, everyone may understand this, but maybe this is me sort of pleading to Joan and her committee, is that if we don't approve the CPA funding at town meeting because we have to pull the warrant article because CPC isn't going to support it officially anymore because we haven't met all 4 of those contingencies, unless the town then bonds, borrows, or fines $2 million from somewhere else, which I don't see happening, there is no second chance at this. If the town can't come to a purchase and sales agreement with the seller by the end of the month, they're going to sell to somebody else. So this is our one shot at this as a town. And so if there is any, if CPC feels that there's benefit to this project, I would implore some, a little, as much wiggle room as you could give us, understanding that winter came and buried us. Because we can't just wait for fall town meeting. The property won't still be available, or
No.
spring town meeting even.
When
May
Claire-
I respond?
Yes,
And I believe what I heard from Ms. Whiteside was that 3 of them will be definitely completed by the time that town meeting rolls around. I will take the boundary survey back to my committee, and I can't imagine that anyone is going to have an issue with it, but I also can't make that decision because it was a voted on issue. And so I have to take it back to my committee to have them just reapprove that vote. So I don't think it's going to hold the project up, but that one thing we'll take back on the 9th.
And I appreciate that very much. I did just want to make that clear for everyone else on this call and in this meeting as well, is that there is no extension on finalizing this with the seller. It's sort of a now or never, which is why there's such this ridiculous compressed timeline to start with. We're not doing this because it's fun. So it's we're working with the realities that are before us.
I can assure you that when Claire Smith bangs her gavel down at 6:59, this will be ready to go.
Yes. And if I may I ask a question?
Yes.
Of Madam Chair? Your meeting is on the 9th, right? You said?
Yes.
Okay. So if I got you an update on the 9th of the expected delivery date of every single one of the documents.
That'd be great.
And if I already have some of them, I am speaking for Derek. I keep doing that, but
Then you do it.
then we would share those with you. But I will give you an email the morning of the 9th with where they are.
Thank you. And please feel free to join the meeting.
Oh, yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, questions?
Bernie,
Yes,
I
Gary.
let's put a little esoteric nightcap, accounting nightcap on this. That the CPC is going to be in it for 2 million plus about 142,000 in interest expense. So it is costing the town 2,142,000 for that from the CPC. Plus, here's where it gets good. They're forfeiting all the interest income that you could have had on that 2 million by not spending it. So I think, you might want to say that's a part of the cost too. Although that's esoteric and you really can't get there.
Yes, just a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you, Bernie.
But I might point out that all this money is already in the bank. Any other concerns? We have the moderators on the line if she wanted to say anything.
Are we on part 3 now of your little presentation here?
I think we've more than covered part 3, unless you want to go further. Jody, you had more questions.
Yeah, I have a few. A lot have been answered, and some of my concerns.
Okay,
just-
Jody, why don't you go forward with your questions, please?
Just so you don't know, I was a golf course general manager, superintendent, mechanic for a municipal golf course. That's where I retired from. So I do have some golf experience. My first concern, and this was discussed, is the appraisal. And my biggest concern as far as the top, listen, if this was just open property we were buying, I wouldn't even be discussing this. I'm all for it, but there is a golf course on it. And the town is responsible for the capital outlay, any major expenses that may come up. So when I saw I'd love to see the appraisal. I would love to see a lot of things included in the appraisal, including the pump houses, the maintenance buildings, the clubhouse. When I say the clubhouse, you got a heating system, things like that could go, a roof. I made a couple notes here. Is the building ADA compliant? They're going to want to expand the kitchen to do outings and stuff. Then there's a big expense to bring it up to the fire code and things like that. So my whole concern is with the capital outlays that might come out. I know if the golf course doesn't make it, we have a beautiful piece of property. And, you know, I looked at different things. I'm looking at the equipment list here. These are major expenses. Some of them are pretty old. Some of them aren't valued at pretty high. I mean, I'm looking at a Green Master mower that was bought in 2001. That's 20 years old now. It can go a lot longer with the right maintenance, but they paid 24 for it now. I can tell you right now, that's probably between $35,000 and $40,000. So there are some major expenses that can come up. And it's very concerning. So as far as the appraisal goes, I would have liked to have seen more in depth. If you had to replace a pump in the pump station, I'd like a golf person with more experience than I have to look at those things. You know, you talk about irrigation. Yeah, you fix a leak in the pipe, no big deal. A sprinkler head, a couple $100. But a pump, it's gonna be $35,000, $40,000. The pump house, condition is in. The control panel, is it new, is it old? Those are all things I felt should have been looked at. And it's a little concerning. Like I said, these people knew they were getting out of the golf business. I knew when I retired that winter, I probably didn't put the effort into it I should have. And the next guy had to pick up the pieces. The revenue and expense reports, that was real helpful. But 32,000, I know the golf course can make more money than that. On a positive note, I know a lot about Little Harbor. I don't know a lot about the management of it. I know a lot of people, superintendents that play golf down there. And at one time they played winter golf all winter. They kind of get away from that. That can be a big plus, you know, with a management company coming in. I'm sure they will look at those things. But I would have liked to see a more in-depth revenue and expense report. I know they didn't want to give it up, but I feel we're a finance committee. We should see the finances. And I'm not saying me, but we have some very talented people on the finance committee. I would love for them to be able to see them and come back and say, yeah, it looks pretty good. But that's just my opinion, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm gonna tell you, the other thing and I used to get beat up on this all the time, the membership. You know, this is a town-owned course for the town residents. Well, the membership, how many of them are actually Wareham residents? I mean, if you can come back with a number that said 75% are Wareham residents, I think everybody would be happy. I can tell you, I never came close to that number with membership. I was under 50%. And I'll leave it at that, but I think that could be a big selling point. I could sit here and give nightmare stories about some of these management companies. You hear all the success stories. I can tell you some that weren't as successful. One company I hope they're not even talking to, there's a golf course not too far from here, run by a management company, is now a solar farm. So they're not all success stories. And you have to be careful. In the RFP, I had a meeting with the town administrator. I'd like to see them put in there some Wareham days that the Wareham could use the course for different things. That would be something. I don't know if it's possible. I know I see Judy shaking her head no, but there's a lot of things towns can do in different things. But I'm really concerned about the capital expenses. I mean, this equipment, none of it's cheap. A fairway mower, I told Brian this, the last fairway mower I bought, I spent $75,000 on it. I will say they've bought good equipment. I've most of it's Toro, which is top of the line, which is a good thing. You get a lot of years out of it, more than 20, hopefully, but it all comes to the mechanic. All I can say is I would like to see more of an appraisal, and I'd like to see more of the revenue dash expenses. I mean, I think that's, as a finance committee, that's our responsibility. And I'll just leave it all at that. I know it's been a long night for people, and I'm all for open, but the golf course is another story. I don't want to see houses down there. Make no mistake about it.
Jody,
Mr.
I'm
Pigeon?
not sure anyone can give you all the answers to all your questions,
Oh, I know, but that's what people come up to vote for.
but when an RFP is put out, I'm sure the people who respond to it will want to take a walk through the course, take a look through the equipment and all, because part of that will be requiring them to make an evaluation as
Yep.
to what maybe need to be replaced and those costs, because it's going to be built into their expense sheet. And I would hope that you would be a member of that group to make sure they're aware of what they're looking at and not fudge any of the marks. And Judy, did you have a comment you wanted to add?
Yes, I wanted to add that I actually had a long conversation with somebody who's been in the irrigation system business for 30 years, who previously worked and still works for Makepeace and is very familiar, obviously, with irrigation. About 5 years ago, he was asked by Little Harbor Country Club to give a bid on sprinkling the putting green, the practice putting green. And ultimately, he gave the bid and they ultimately decided not to do it. However, when he was there, he looked at all of the equipment. He said, you know, this is sand. The stuff has been in the ground for, 40, 50 years or whatever. As long as you drain the pumps out, he said, the stuff in cranberry bogs is well taken care of and it lasts 50, 60, 80, 100 years. So, I can't promise you that there's not going to be a break, but the only things that are
breaks. The stuff in
The
the ground
only
is minor.
the only thing that they irrigate are the tees and the greens.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, can I interject 1 second
Yes,
here?
Jim.
I've been in the golf course business. I was general manager of Catanza, general manager of Charles River Country Club. So some of the stuff Jody's saying is fine. Some of the worries and concerns he's got, I think, are out of line for our considerations here. We're buying open space. It does happen to have a golf course. We're not in the golf course business. We don't intend to be in the golf course business. We're going to hire a management company. If we can't find a good management company, we'll probably close the damn golf course and it'll be just open space. I don't believe anybody sitting here wants to go back into golf course management. We proved with Bay Point that we're incapable of doing something like that. So doing the same thing over again is the height of insanity when you expect different results. So we'll hire a golf course management company, work on the RFP, replacement of equipment. I think that could be a discussion with the management company. Once they look at the property, look at the equipment and everything else on who's going to pay for what. Some of these things can't be answered right at this particular point in time, but I think the direction is there to go ahead on a positive note, buy this piece of property, protect that area, because I sure as hell don't want to see a solar farm there. That Toby Road one was a real nightmare. Still is, will be forever. Housing, that's a drain on the community by the time you get through. The income expense situation, put in more houses, cost the town more money. So as far as I'm concerned, we need to buy the place, get over all this stuff and just get it done. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I just respond real quick? See, I'm only concerned about the capital outlays. I'm not, we're at the golf course is there. I'm just concerned. I'm not afraid of it or anything. I just don't want to see the town have to put out, I'll use $100,000, just a number of stuff just to get up and get running. And then close it down in 3 years or 4 years, 5 years.
That's a discussion with the management company.
Yes, we'll resolve those issues in the RFP and with whom we choose, and we'll have interviews with the people who submit their, and you two, both of you have such experience to be able to evaluate them to make sure they're reasonable and fair to the community. And anything else?
Yes. Bernie,
Yes, Stuart.
what has concerned me through this whole discussion is we need a message to the town. Are we buying this for open land? It happens to have a golf course on it. We'll try to run it. If it doesn't work, the hell with it. Or are we buying a golf course? I think the town is quite divided as to what they want. And I think we're making a mistake if we try to sell this golf course. It may not work. And I think if we can't sell the town on buying the open space, then I don't think we should do it.
I can agree with you. And I think what is necessary is to establish some kind of parameter in where we will say the golf course fails, we're going back just to open space. And assurances that we're going to do that. The town is not going to submit or spend tax dollars on trying to make it survive, to struggle a couple of years as a large expense or drain on our budget, trying to make it survive, that there's going to be a cutoff point. And an example would be, and I just speculate, if we get RFPs that are unsatisfactory and don't protect the town sufficiently, that would be a significant parameter to say, okay, you can't meet it, we close the course. Because we're only doing this on a handshake. Mostly, it's just a commitment that we're going to try to do it.
May
Yeah.
I? Yeah. We have prepared a frequently asked questions document. The short version is 2 pages long. The long version is 4 pages long. We intend to put that information up on the town website, submit it to both the newspapers, put it on social media. Buzzards Bay Coalition has agreed to put a blast use the information, put a blast out to their members. I know that we've been talking with Wareham Land Trust about sharing information and having them contact their members. In my viewpoint, it happens to be a piece of property which falls in the Oz zone that is an extremely attractive investment, either for somebody who's going to build something that we don't want to see, or ultimately for open space for the town. It happens to have a golf course on it.
Correct. And we're doing, as I say, as a commitment to the owners that we will attempt to make it a viable, continue with viability. We are buying a piece of property, 54 acres, plus or minus. And they're going to operate it in a transitional mode until we're able to get a management company. But again, it focuses all on getting the management company. And I would suggest from my point of view, if we don't find a satisfactory one, we're going to have to close the course. We're not going to run it ourselves. And I think that's a commitment to the community that we should try and make to assure them. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be there.
All I'm saying is you're giving out 2 messages. The only message, in my view, that makes sense is we want to preserve this land as open space and we don't want to develop it. It happens to have a golf course. A lot of people in this town want us to keep it running. We'll do the best we can, but there are no guarantees. We're doing this because we don't want a solar farm or a development on this property. And if you don't buy that, then, there's no point in doing it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Richard.
Stuart, I'm the keeper of the FAQ document right now. And we've been holding back on, we're very, very close to done with it, but we've been holding back because we wanted to hear feedback tonight. And I'm hearing you loud and clear. We've said the right words. I think that the FAQ document can emphasize the point you're making better. And I commit to you that we'll do that. I mean, I totally agree with your message and we'll make sure it's loud and clear.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you,
think that we can count on Elise's continued support to provide editing services to make sure that that is really the message that is what you just said. We happen to be buying a very attractive parcel of land. It happens to have a golf course on it.
I might use those exact words, Stuart. So
Yes. Any other concerns or questions?
Take the vote.
That's our practice is normally to wait till the following week in case you want additional information, but it's up to the members if they want to make a vote this evening. It's your choice. It's just a practice that we do.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote tonight.
By all means, we can do that. Dominic, you want to make a motion?
I make the motion that we take a vote tonight where we have all the information fresh in our mind.
Okay, we don't need to make a motion to take a vote tonight. It's just something you want to do, and that's fine. So just make your motion.
I make a motion for that we purchase this land.
Now, excuse me. Article 1 then.
Article 1 as written.
May I have a second?
Second.
Stuart, that was a second. Dominic moved, Stuart second. Any further discussion?
Just, and this has been touched on, and we've been seeing it on TV for 2 years. The messaging is very important. Stay on point, keep the message. You know, the old saying, simple is better sometimes, but
Always.
it's a great piece of land. I'm not disputing that. That's all.
Jody, I'm sorry, Jody, were you speaking to the facts thing that we should try and really simplify that down?
Well, just stay on point. Yeah, there is a
Okay.
golf course there. I started out by saying, I'm all for the open space, make no mistake about it, but there is a golf course there. And I'm just kind of looking at protecting the town a little bit if something, something goes wrong, but it's a great piece of land. I'm not disputing that one iota. It just.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's all I'm saying. It's.
Okay, before I call the roll, I want to make a note that Tom and Matt joined the meeting at approximately 6:30. So that means I'll count them now. I'll take a vote. On Article 1, Matt, yea or nay? Are you muted, Matt?
Yes, he is.
Yes. That's a yes.
Yes, you're muted, or yes, you'll vote?
Yes. Yes is my vote.
Tom, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes or no?
No.
Dominic?
Yes.
David?
Well, I want to
Yes.
wait till you get all the information.
Stuart?
Yes.
Jerry? You're muted, Jerry.
No,
Jody?
No.
And I'm yes. It's 5 yeses, 3 noes. It's a vote. On Article 2, which is to accept CPC funding. May I have a motion?
I'll move it.
David moved.
Second,
Who seconded, please?
Dominic.
Dominic, very good. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion, gentlemen? There being none, I'll call a vote. Matt,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Dominic,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Stuart,
Yes.
Jerry,
No,
Jody,
Oh,
and I'm,
Not to accept the funding?
I don't particularly care to lock in 54 acres for life for open space. I think that if the town gets into serious trouble, macroeconomics in 5 or 10 years, we don't have an option to do anything with the land. I think.
okay, there
I
was
think-
6 yes, 2 no. Motion is passed. There being no other business? Any comments? Anybody want to offer something? There being none, our next meeting date is February 9th. I have invited the school committee to that meeting to review their budget. I haven't heard back from them.
At what time, Vern?
It'll be, I think it'll be a face meeting, so it'll be 6:30.
Okay,
We'll do it at room 27. Unless there's a significant number who prefer not to meet, and then we'll have to go to a Zoom. Because we can't do a hybrid Zoom.
Thank you, Bernie. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you.